Hello. And good day everyone. Welcome once again to my channel. Halloween is coming, so it's best to talk about it today. Do you know the history of Halloween? Okay, I will not bore you, so let's get started. Halloween is the season for little ghosts and goblins to take to the streets, asking for candy and scaring one another silly. Spooky stories are told around fires, scary movies appear in theaters, and pumpkins are expertly carved into jack-o'-lanterns. Since much of the history of Halloween wasn't written down for centuries, some of it is still sketchy and subject to debate. The Celts, who lived 2,000 years ago in the area that is now Ireland, the United Kingdom and northern France. At sunset on October 31st, clans or local villages begin the formal ceremonies of Samhain by lighting a giant bonfire. The people would gather around the fire to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. It was a method of giving the gods and goddesses their share of the previous year's herd or crops. In addition, these sacred fires were a big part of the cleansing of the old years and a method to prepare for the coming new year. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes and danced around the bonfire. Many of these dances told stories or played out the cycles of life and death or commemorated the cycle of wheel of life. These costumes were adorned for three primary reasons. The first was to honor the dead who were allowed to rise from the otherworld. The Celts believed that souls were set free from the land of the dead during the eve of Samhain. Those that had been trapped in the bodies of animals were released by the Lord of the Dead and sent to their new incarnations. The wearing of these costumes signified the release of these souls into the physical world. Not all of these souls were honored and respected. Some were also feared, as they would return to the physical world and destroy crops, hide livestock, or haunt the living who may have done them wrong. The final representation was a method to honor the Celtic gods and goddesses of the harvest, fields and flocks, giving thanks and homage to those deities who assisted the village or clan through the trials and tribulations of the previous year, and to ask for their favor during the coming year and the harsh winter months that were approaching. In addition to celebrations and dance, it was believed that this thin veil between the physical world and the other world provided extra energy for communications between the living and the dead. With these communications, Druid priests and Celtic shamans would attempt to tell the fortunes of individual people through a variety of methods. For a people entirely dependent on the volatile natural world, these prophecies were an important source of comfort and direction during the long, dark winter. When the community celebration was over, each family would take a torch or burning ember from the sacred bonfire and return to their own home. The home fires that has been extinguished during the day were relit by the flame of the sacred bonfire to help protect the dwelling and its inhabitants during the coming winter. These fires were kept burning night and day during the next several months. It was believed that if the home lost its fire, tragedy and troubles would soon follow. With the hearth fires lit, the families would place food and drink outside their doors. This was done to appease the roaming spirits who might play tricks on the family. The Romans began to conquer the Celtic territories. By AD 43 had succeeded in claiming the majority of the Celtic lands. They ruled for approximately 400 years, combining or influencing many Celtic traditional celebrations with their own. Two Roman holidays were merged with Samhain. With the coming of Christianity in the 800 AD, the early church in England tried to Christianize the old Celtic festivals. Pope Boniface IV designated the 1st of November as All Saints' Day, honoring saints and martyrs. He also decreed October 31st as All Hallows' Eve, that eventually became Halloween. Trick-or-treating. is a modern tradition that probably finds its roots in the early All Souls' Day parades in England. During the festivities, poor citizens would beg for food and families would give them pastries called soul cakes, in return for their promise to pray for the family's dead relatives. The distribution of soul cakes was encouraged by the church as a way to replace the ancient practice of leaving food and wine for roaming spirits. The practice, which was referred to as gowling and sowling, was eventually taken up by children who would visit the houses in their neighborhood and be given early food and money. Today many Americans celebrate Halloween on October 31st. It is the second big event in the USA, celebrated by hosting costume parties, playing trick-or-treat, watching horror films, visiting haunted houses or carving lanterns out of pumpkins. Facts to know that Americans will spend $350 million on Halloween costumes for their pets. Total Halloween spending $6.9 billion for costume and spending on Halloween candy for $2.1 billion. It may come as a shock to some, and this is the shocking season. After all, that Halloween is the second most commercially successful holiday after Christmas. That's all for now, and thank you for watching.